I'll talk a bit about cross-laminated timber and sticking bits of timber together, or making bigger things out of smaller pieces of timber, because it's relevant to what you're saying. Because you don't, your timber doesn't always, trees don't always grow how you want them to. They don't sort of produce the perfect length or width for Roger to process. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, for instance, these small pieces on your logo here, you can have a very small tree, even a coppice tree, which is, cut to ground level and regrows, quite a traditional way of managing things like sweet chestnut. And you can take sweet chestnut and break it down into small pieces, and you can put it back together again. You can put it back together in many, many forms, and it can become extremely strong. Mm-hmm. And so, you can use small pieces of wood in different ways to add value to it. And I think we need to do a lot more of that. There are about 90 cross-laminated timber plants in Europe. There's not one really, proper functioning plant in the UK that's arguably can compete with the 90 on the continent. And so that's really important that we do that. And they largely use softwood, almost entirely use softwood. And in fact, hardwood is the thing where you get smaller lengths because of the way hardwoods grow, more branchy, shorter straight lengths. So I think that's one aspect, but of using small wood, which links to the firewood story that you just portrayed. Let's not beat about the bush. There's another downside to burning wood, which is that if you don't do it with the seasoned wood that's dry, and you don't have the right high quality kit to burn it on at high temperatures, it can put things into the atmosphere that are not healthy. Yeah. So particulates and chemicals. So it's something that has been addressed recently in the UK with new policies and support mechanisms. And there's things like, Growing in Britain's grown up with Woodshaw as a good partner, and they with others have produced a campaign called Ready to Burn. And that's about making sure that wood is of the right moisture content and dry to burn more safely. And I think that really helps the narrative around using wood fuel. I mean, if you take moving from, say, split logs that you might put into a boiler, so that's one market. There's another market where you break it down into biomass chips and you put it into biomass boilers. Mm-hmm. And that's done at scale. That really has helped bring woods into management. There's absolutely no doubt about that. For quite a long time, first thinnings weren't really done, were they, Roger? Trees and woods were were thin to waste even. They were cut down. So I don't wish to dumb it down, but if you take a kind of gardening scenario where you plant out some root vegetables, you don't leave them just to sort of all grow up together. You've got to spread them out so that, the ones you want left get fatter. Yeah. But just leaving it in the woods just seemed really, really a shame, and of course still costs money to do. So often it wasn't even done. So woods are brought into management through that firewood trade, that biomass trade. And if you don't use biomass in, say, a district heating system, or you don't use biomass in a power station, what do you use? What are your alternatives? So yeah, you're right. It's carbon neutral. There may be some challenges to that because of the burning wood has other consequences. But when you think about the alternatives,
it's still a better option.
It's an excellent option, and you get this kickback to biodiversity by having, woods that aren't too dense for ground cover, ground floor, and everything that goes with it.
As we said, it can support a much more varied land use as well. So there's all those landscape benefits to it as well. It's a very difficult one to know what the best solution is. But what would you say would be the best thing to help resolve some of these problems? So what with these challenges around timber? So obviously you've talked about there being many more plants on the continent and around the world producing this new higher quality timber in timber materials as such. What's the big stumbling block here? Is it investment? Is it perception? Is it understanding of what we can do? Where would you guys like to go with your business? What are there any products you'd like to expand into, or troubles you've had?
Well, I mean, we're in our own little world. I mean, looking at the bigger picture, there's an awful lot can be done for the British timber trade as a whole, but it's not necessarily in my benefit to personal benefit to encourage it, really. But we need more capital investment I think that's the main thing. I mean, there's things like, I mean, you touched on it earlier about laminating, but we used to have a big plywood industry after after the war, you know, because it was an important industry for making planes and the like. And I mean, the last plywood factory closed, I think, in the early 90s, and everything got exported to China and the like. We need to bring things like that back again, but unfortunately we've lost the expertise and the machinery. But that doesn't mean to say we can't resuscitate it. There's nobody that I know of that makes veneers in this country anymore. You have to go to Germany or somewhere like that, or France. There's little things like that which all would help.
Yeah, and I think you know, coming out of Brexit, restrictions allows more of promoting your own.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty well banned. You couldn't really promote your own country's products within Europe over another country. It had a sort of level playing field under the European rules, and I think there's going to be a bit of a legacy lag on understanding that it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only in recent years, for obvious reasons, after Brexit, that Growing in Britain sort of had doors open to us, because up until then, doors were rather shut because, well, you can't promote British, you can't promote that. So I think there's that if you like, that's a policy field.
Yeah.
But I don't just say that's a public policy field, although that's absolutely vital. I think business has got a role to play here to say they would actually, you know, because they do talk about local. If you pick up any corporate annual corporate report, it looks more like a Sunday magazine than a financial report, doesn't it? It's got pictures of the staff and the team and the people. It's all about the people and the environment. It's about their carbon footprint. Well, why not think about where they get their timber from and their forest products? Why not? So it's not just government. Government can show a lead, and certainly the government public policy around timber procurement and forest product procurement could be more in favour of Growing in Britain. That's for sure. But actually, it goes for the private sector as well. And I you know, there are some great companies working with Growing in Britain who are really switching to preferring, you know, local materials and certified local materials. So it's not yet a trend, I would argue. Mm-hmm. I think we've got some leaders showing the way, and there's some very exciting names that we work with, but we're not feeling it. We're not feeling. You know, we're both quite passionate, and we'd rather it was felt like a real pull on the market. I still get just as many conversations saying that people aren't asking for it. Why, you know? And I thought, well, do you need somebody to ask for it to make the leap and show leadership yourself if you're in the supply chain? If you're a woodland owner, or you're a harvesting company, or you're a primary processor sawmill, or you're a secondary processor, or you actually make a product that retails to the public, why don't you ask for it, even if you maybe can't get it straight away because they haven't been asked for it before? Someone's got to start that conversation to say, look, we're listening to customers, we're listening to what people are saying, local's best. I need to know that I want the logo on it, because you do the bit that I can't do. You make sure it has the right management plan in place, it's been legally felled, which is what Growing in Britain does. You've got those things in place. I will then tell and encourage my supplier, and then one day I might demand it. And if you say to your supplier, look, I'm just letting you know that I really want you to do this, and there's plenty of places you can get it from, and by the way, in a few years' time, I'm going to just only buy from. So I think there's a lot. I mean, I know that sounds a bit kind of, I'm bound to say that but actually, I think it's the way to change things, is to actually show leadership.
Yeah, definitely. Well, as you said, there's so many companies switching to new carbon targets and all that kind of thing. I mean, I've been involved with various projects where, you know, everything has to be monitored for its carbon footprint now. And it's a bit of a nightmare because no one actually really publishes the carbon on anything. But it is being asked for. So people are starting to have to go, oh God, actually, yeah, we've got to start getting that together. And the few companies that are doing it typically are the ones that do a very good job of it and make it a real big aim of theirs. You know, they're the ones which a lot of people are turning to. You know, we're looking at some of these suppliers for our business out and going, well, actually, why would we go anywhere else? Yeah. You know, why would we go anywhere else? We're only going to go to these guys because we know, one, it's really good quality, and two, it's super sustainable, or it's as sustainable as we can get for this type of product that we need. You know, so it's those type of things that are shifting. And, you know, there's so many targets coming out now, 2030, 2040, 2050, 2025, whatever company's coming up with. There's no reason why companies can't, as you say, set that as a target and say, look, to their suppliers, yeah, exactly as you said, we're aiming for this date, you've got this time to get it sorted. And,
you know, we'll tell them, we'll talk to people like Roger and say, look, can you make this stuff? If we can't make it here, we'll say, we can't make it here at the moment, but there are people working on it.
Yeah.
you want some, tiger blackened cladding, there's a bit of a waiting list because there's only one company doing it, and all that sort of thing. But you sort of say, but you're on the right track. You're forcing change through by demand. So ultimately, it is people who, you've got policy, you've got companies, but then it's society, and that's what's driven change in the supermarket. I mean, I kind of hope that the timber story, I like to think of it as a forest product story as well, because it's also things like firewood and other things that come out of forests other than just say timber that you can saw. There's other things. Is that we've almost forgotten that 20 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, worrying where your food came from that you fed to either yourself or your children was not really a thing. It wasn't really a thing. It's become so much of a thing now, it's no longer a thing. Does that make sense? People, it's now subliminal. It's not actually, because the supermarkets have already got it. So they don't have one aisle which says, this is from a Devon farm. It's a lot more money than every other aisle in this shop. It's the other way around now. That you've got the Oriental row or the something else row from around the world row. Everything else is presumed by most customers to be from a very transparent, as local as possible, sustainable chain of custody. And I know the big supermarkets do their research, and I've seen their reports, and they say customers ask for quite a few things, and value for money and price is not often at the top. It's usually sort of 3 or 4. What they ask for is healthy, traceable, transparent food. I know where it's come from. I understand what I'm buying and what I'm feeding to my kids or feeding to myself. And that narrative, if we can translate that more, it's starting to happen, but if we can translate that more into this fantastic stuff. Okay, you do eat forest products, nuts, berries, venison, we do eat some of it, but actually you can touch and feel a table or a set of chairs, or the frame in your house will support your house for hundreds of years. You'll sit around that table eating your food. You'll wear the glasses made out of the wood, while you eat the food. So I'm hoping people will make those huge connections, and society will drive change ultimately.